Over the last decade, Charlotte Flair has become one of the, if not the single most prominent female figure in WWE. And along the road to the top where she's found her throne, there have been a lot of interesting bumps along the way. I'm Si for What Culture Wrestling, and these are 10 fascinating WWE backstage facts about Charlotte Flair. Number 10, making up for lost time. Though Charlotte Flair has mostly remained tight-lipped on the worst of times between her and Becky Lynch during their falling out, and that infamously awful 2021 belt-swapping segment on SmackDown, Lynch has spoken enough for the both of them in a recently released autobiography, as well as in interviews following their on-screen reunion ahead of the 2023 Survivor Series. Speaking to the Getting Over podcast, she said that their burying of the hatchet may have been partly inspired, rather darkly but totally understandably, by mortality, citing the tragic passings of the likes of Brody Lee and Bray Wyatt, as well as other personal tragedies, as helping her realize that, quote, petty differences aren't worth the toxicity it leaves in you and the weight that it carries. The two worked together for the first time in 2 years as part of the Women's War Games match, and Lynch has since noted that it was important for the both of them. Number 9, the insane story of her 2022 women's title win. Charlotte Flair's December 2022 return to TV felt like bait for those who had often felt she'd carried the golden ticket for title shots around everywhere she went. After months off television, the Queen returned to challenge and beat Ronda Rousey in an impromptu SmackDown Women's Championship match after the baddest woman on the planet had just endured a war with Raquel Rodriguez. Per Ronda, this was her call entirely. Writing in her autobiography Our Fight, she described the event, which kicked off with her informing Charlotte she would win earlier that day, to which Flair pointed out she didn't have her gear with her. As such, someone was sent to make the 2.5-hour round-trip drive to her house to go and get it. Adding that it was make or break for her in the company at the time, Rousey described this not as a request but as a demand, and one that was palpable enough that she felt her unspoken message was felt by creative. In her words, if I didn't get my way this time, I was going to walk. The whole thing was just 41 seconds, making it Flair's quickest title win of the 14 she's amassed. Number 8, just what happened in that Nia Jax match. Few who saw it will forget the legendarily odd breakdown in communication between Charlotte Flair and Nia Jax during the September 30th, 2021 edition of Monday Night Raw. The company had only been back in front of fans for a few months, so perhaps the pair thought that this moment could be reshot, as many had no doubt been before in the Thunderdome. Or more accurately, the red mist descended and bombs were lobbed. The two of them didn't remotely try and hide it. There appeared to be genuine animosity between them, so much so that they appeared to be sandbagging each other as a way to work through the obvious tension. After some uncooperative and subsequently ugly exchanges, they were brought back to reality, or, wrestling's version of it, long enough for Jax to defeat the Queen and set up a rematch for her Raw Women's Championship the following week. Although people were way more interested in talking about this in-ring breakdown more than the title match for obvious reasons. Number 7, she took issue with a Ric Flair WWE lawsuit. Charlotte Flair has shared a complex relationship with her father on screen over the years, with the two temporarily working together in a wrestler and manager capacity before the Queen kicked the Nature Boy to the curb in 2016. He later sided with Sasha Banks as part of an ongoing program between the Horsewomen, and Ric's gradual drop in appearances ever since have diminished the need for them to appear together. However, this was all made worse by a real lawsuit filed by the paternal Flair in 2018 against WWE relating directly to his daughter's big feud at the time. Ric elected to file a suit over Charlotte's main rival Becky Lynch, referring to herself as the Man, something he admitted made Charlotte mad. Speaking to TMZ, Ric said that he owned the trademark to that, after all it's the title of his book, and that he threatened Triple H with a lawsuit over it. Ric assumed that Charlotte's apparent anger had something to do with Becky's new gimmick, which he assured her was not the case. But let's face it, Charlotte was likely understandably more mad that her dad was meddling in a very hot feud. Nothing ultimately came of it, though later Ric noted in 2022 that he remained annoyed that the trademark wasn't passed down to his children after Lynch's branding went on to be so successful. Number 6, the Queen brings the numbers. Charlotte Flair had batted back accusations of being a female Roman Reigns in the Roman wins lol kind of way, but a deep dive into the statistics paints a picture of a performer working to keep her spot. An excellent example of the value of reps, the Queen repeatedly ascended to her throne in part due to how often she laces up her boots. Of course, please consider the numbers here as of speaking, because a return at any moment could skew the figures even more in her favour, but with a bit of rounding up, Flair can boast one match every 4 days since she first debuted in 2012. When a couple of injuries injury breaks are deducted from the total, the average gets even bigger. Flair was something of a prodigy, racing from having never taken a bump in her life to working nightly on the main roster in under 3 years. And the multiple title reigns she amassed came with the attendant workload. Though not exactly on par with the brutal schedule her father and others like him kept in years gone by, on average 90 matches a year is some going for a wrestler that has thankfully experienced a slightly kinder house show calendar due to and following the global pandemic. Number 5, and the numbers don't lie. Arguments around overexposure, particularly during Vince McMahon's latter years, were always more about the creative usage of the characters rather than wins and losses. And the reason it's worth applying nuance rather than numbers to the discussion is revealed when reviewing Charlotte's win-loss record. For all of Flair's constantly being dogged with criticisms of being overpushed or used in spots she theoretically didn't warrant, she doesn't hold a record that particularly reflects the favoritism. At the time of speaking, according to the Internet Wrestling Database, she has a 55.86% win record, which speaks more to the company's classic 50-50 booking pattern more than anything else. So strictly speaking on a statistical level, Flair wins lol isn't true, and if anything it says a lot about the company's horrid fear of creating a dominant star through wins and still having audiences tire of certain stars by simply overexposing them. That's all to say, for somebody considered the Queen, she's had less of a problem surrendering her crown than it might often have appeared. Number 4, the Performance Center's greatest graduate? The WWE Performance Center was unveiled in 2013. Amongst other things, it was Triple H's attempt to fix an entirely broken developmental system as previously overseen by the endlessly useless John Laurinaitis. Over a decade in, it's kind of hard to judge if it's been a success or not. The hit rate is not particularly high when it comes to ground-up prospects, because the figures are particularly skewed thanks to Triple H's recruitment policy during the 2016 to 2019 post-Golden era of NXT. This was when the best of the American independent scene was raided in an effort to make the market leader's developmental look more credible. Of course, that philosophy has shifted since the Wednesday Night Wars, and the present-day next-in-line system brings in people from athletic backgrounds to see if they can adapt to the rigors of the ring. This might as well be known as the Charlotte Flair model. A prodigious volleyball player at university level alongside time spent as a personal trainer, Flair had more than just the right DNA for pro wrestling. That she grasped it like she did realistically set the standard too high for most others to follow, with only Bianca Belair and Braun Strowman being able to go from amateurs to all-stars. Number 3, the Grand Slam nobody else can ever win. Wrestling careers last longer now, and overall that's a good thing for the health, wealth and happiness of the stars. If you're a record keeper though, it means for some shifting goalposts. Superstars move between brands, dip in and out of teams and navigate through multiple title reigns. Even within the fiction of pro wrestling, belts are very real acknowledgements of jobs well done. But the more there are, the less special some particular prizes feel. It's why when you have something nobody else has, or can ever have, you've left an extra large mark. Flair is one of a select few to have the Raw Women's Championship, the SmackDown Women's Championship, the Women's Tag Team Championship, and a Royal Rumble win to her name, and may yet win a Money in the Bank briefcase to join Bayley in an even more exclusive club. However, she's the sole occupant of another page in the record books thanks to the Divas title she won that was retired at WrestleMania 32. The butterfly belt was very much part of the furniture at this point when Flair was called up alongside two of her fellow Four Horsewomen in 2015. The Queen was the only one of the group to hold the silver and pink strap until it was finally replaced. Number 2, a real-life relationship resulted in a fictional tag team breakup. Despite years of doing otherwise, WWE has more recently worked to keep real-life partners together whenever a draft or superstar shake-up rolls around. These compromises are typically so effortless that it speaks to the sociopathic cruelty of Vince McMahon in the first place to even not try and make these arrangements, but one such case in 2019 did result in the dissolution of a fairly popular tag team. Having been called up to the main roster without much forethought, Aleister Black and Ricochet were paired together and unsurprisingly had excellent chemistry. I mean, they're both brilliant. Their NXT TakeOver New York opener opposite the War Raiders may be one of the most underrated doubles matches in company history, and it looked as though they were going to continue in that vein until real-life relationships resulted in a parting of the ways, one of which was Charlotte Flair's with Andrade. El Idolo was associated on screen with Zelina Vega at this time. They were moving to SmackDown, as such so were Charlotte Flair and Aleister Black to keep them with their partners. However, it was decided that the one and only Ricochet was needed for the Red shared brand, meaning that by this convoluted route, the team were split and never spoken about again. And number 1, the secret controversy behind a WrestleMania classic. At WrestleMania 39, Charlotte Flair and Rhea Ripley earned rave reviews for their SmackDown Women's Championship clash. It was the sort of match that the Queen typically thrived in. Hard-hitting beyond even the regular brutality expected from both. The attritional war was the making of Ripley exactly 3 years on from Flair's controversial NXT Championship victory over her at 2020's cursed pandemic-era Mania. Their rematch was a WrestleMania classic in the making, and it shared something in common with another one too, in that it ran over time at the card's expense. Coming full circle, this is according to Ronda Rousey's autobiography. Her claim that it went 20 minutes past time is presumably off, because the whole thing went just over 23 minutes as it was. But like Shawn Michaels and Razor Ramon's ladder match at WrestleMania 10, a bona fide classic caused issues elsewhere on the show. Allegedly, the Usos versus Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens lost some of its time, which at least doesn't seem as harsh on the talent as 1994's indiscretion. That resulted in a 10-man tag match being completely cut from the show, with Michaels and Ramon earning some stern words from Randy Savage for costing their colleagues a major payday. Rousey noted only Rhea suffered a consequence this time around, temporarily wrestling less and working more at ringside for the Judgment Day until her sentence was served.